All right, guys. So, if you're listening to this, you're someone I would consider in my inner circle, and most of you listening to this are clients. And so, as I'm navigating these waters, not only from a tax perspective, do I want to show you a couple things there, and that's what you pay me to do, right? Is so you don't have to worry about this stuff, and I can do all the work for you, because trust me, there's been plenty of worry over the last few days. Really, but really, so I'm going to share that with you first because that's the most critical thing. But I also do want to just kind of share my thoughts on how I've been preparing for this, what I'm doing now on a mechanical point, but also to just how I'm looking at this just from an energetic and emotional kind of standpoint, right? Because we all know emotions run the world. We can see that, right? And it's a really interesting time. And so I'm going to share some tax stuff with you first and kind of how this is going to affect the returns that we're doing and everything there. But then, if you want to stick around, it's going to take me a few minutes. I'm going to go through this article. It's going to give you some good info. You'll have a link to this article as well, so you can read it for yourself. But then I'm also going to share just a couple of other key things. So, one of the things I'm going to share is really just how to position ourselves in this time of really allowing faith to overpower fear. And I think that's just a part of our human experience. And I think it's really cool that we get to do it in this time. The other thing is this idea of contracting. When others contract, that's the time when we expand. And so this is something I'm very passionate about, that I've been waiting for this. I saw my first oil and gas crash 5 years ago. And since then I've been waiting for this to happen, because I know these are the times when generational wealth can be made. And so as much as people are afraid, is to the level people are afraid, is to the level I'm excited. I couldn't even hardly sleep last night because I was so excited. So I'm going to be sharing with you why I'm so excited and what I see, and how to position yourself. And then I'm also going to tell you what I'm going to be watching over the next 30 days. So the things that I'm going to be looking at, the indicators that I'm going to be keeping track of to see how things are coming along. So the first thing first, let's go through this article. So I do want to make a note. Today is March the 16th. So 316. I think there was a guy named John that wrote a song about that number. That was a Bible joke. Kind of lame. I was going to be a youth pastor, but they said my jokes weren't funny enough. Actually, they said my jokes were too funny, so I couldn't be one. No, so I'm going to read this article. I'm going to just go over this article. You'll have a link so you can read it. But this, I do want to make, this video could be outdated tomorrow. It could be outdated. This article is already 2 days old. It's the best, most recent one that we've got. So I'm going to go over it, but this changes literally hour to hour. An hour ago, the IRS just released a statement that I haven't been able to digest yet. So once I'm able to do that, if there's anything good in there, I'll let you know. But for now, this is a good article. This is from Forbes, I believe. So basically, the government is putting together a stimulus package essentially to help business owners deal with the economic crisis, because if business owners can somehow weather the storm and see opportunity, then that means that the economy is that much quicker to rebound. And so, so you can see that right there. Now, there's a lot of different things going on here, but really this is House Bill 6201. So if you want to look that up, you can. So one of the things that I thought was what really pertains to us is, and I'll cover this in just a second. We did think there was going to be some tax extension deadlines and some payroll tax cuts. Those, as of right now, doesn't look like that's going to happen. We're going to see. I think that could get overruled, but we'll see. So the first thing is this job protected leave. So government employees. So basically that's just for government employees. So if you or anyone that you know is a government employee, and so basically if they have fewer than 500 employees, basically they're going to get some stuff. But the one, so there's a tax credit for paid sick leave and paid family medical leave. So we're not sure. Here's the thing, is that no one's sure on the intricacies of this, right? This is very general statement. So I'm not sure if this fits for you or not. No one is. But here's what's cool, is basically there's a tax credit for sick, like basically if someone's sick or if there's any family emergencies during this, basically there's tax credit. So what that means is essentially, on a very simplified example of this, if you are sick because of the coronavirus and you have to take sick leave, and your employer, who in this case is you, okay, so you're your employer, and as your employer, you have to pay your sick employee, which is you, and you pay yourself $1,000 a week, okay, and you're sick for 3 weeks. So that's $3,000 that you get in sick pay, right? Now, a tax credit is a dollar for dollar credit. So let's say your tax bill is $30,000, okay? Your tax bill is $30,000, but you pay yourself that $3,000. Every dollar of that $3,000 is a tax credit, meaning now your tax bill is only $27,000. Do you see how powerful that is? Because normally, when you pay $3,000, you only get 20 or 25% of that as a tax deduction. But this is a actual full tax credit. Now, that's a very simplified example, but this one's incredible. You know, and we don't know the extent. What does sick leave mean, right? There's like a lesser credit that applies for someone who has a family member who's sick. But what is sick? Do they have to be a bona fide test results case of the coronavirus, or can it just be the flu? Or we don't know. There's no way to know. So this is something we'll be digging into and watching. This is probably my favorite one. So I'm going to read this word for word because it's critical. It's really good. Self-employed individuals qualify for a refundable credits, including those who must self-isolate, obtain a diagnosis, or comply with self-isolation recommended for coronavirus, right? So one of my clients lives in northern Denver area, I think the foothills. So Denver is Denver's kind of a catastrophe zone, right? Schools are shutting. I mean, of course, schools are shutting down, but like one of my friends sent me a picture of downtown Denver. It's a ghost town, right? So in that situation, and there's going to be more of these, right? This is the beginning. But I want you to, so this is where we read critically. We get a full refundable credit, including those who must self-isolate, obtain a diagnosis, or comply with self-isolation. So it can be any of those three things. It doesn't have to be all three of them, right? This is where we read critically. So we don't know what the guidelines are on self-isolating, but the IRS is really good about giving us general, vague statements, and that's one of them. Self-isolating. Well, there hasn't been a case of coronavirus in my town in Odessa, Texas, but maybe I do need to self-isolate to take precautions, because if I get sick, my business goes downhill. So maybe I do qualify for this credit. Now, we don't know what the credit is. We don't know what the caps are, right? We don't know any of this stuff. But these are the things that I'm watching so that we can make sure and capitalize on this. Because this could, from a tax perspective, this could really help your business. So that's part of what I'm excited about. You know, here's what's not in the bill. So there was a statement released on today's Tuesday. I believe it was released on Friday afternoon. I saw it about 3 o'clock on Friday. Maybe it was earlier in the day when it was released. That said that Trump was going to extend filing deadlines and there was going to be payroll tax cuts. Those two things did not make it in the bill. You know, who knows why or what? Those things did not make it in the bill. I will tell you this: the IRS is going to be very, very lenient on extensions, right? And so yeah, the deadline is still April 15th. You can file extensions with almost no repercussions anyway. It's going to be even more generous this year. And here's the thing: is this can be changed at any moment, right? If they see the economy is getting worse and people are getting sick, and like if we have, you know, New York basically shut down today. If the rest of the country shuts down, I'm not going to guarantee you that they will extend the filing deadline, but think about it. Business owners can't get their paperwork together. Us tax people we're not working, right? And the IRS doesn't have staff to process returns. So it only makes sense. I feel strongly that they're going to extend this, but I don't know. Time will tell. There's no payroll tax cuts. You know, for a lot of us, that's not a huge thing, but just something to think about. You know, any of us that are S corps have payroll taxes because we're an owner, but also an employee, and it helps us on self-employment tax. You all know that if you're a client. But yeah, so there's no payroll tax cuts. So that was one I was kind of bummed not to see, honestly. You're going to have a link to this article, so that's all I wanted to cover there. And so really, you know, now I want to just kind of share with you just some of my thoughts. And I think the first thing is that in the midst of chaos, one, you see what people are made of, and two, you see what yourself's made of. And I've gone through this interesting journey in the last in the last 7 days, really. Because last Monday, when the market started crashing and oil crashed, I knew it was like this was getting bad. Like it was just our economy had been running on red line, doing so well for so long. There was no way for this not to drastically affect the economy. There was no way. And I was kind of in like panic mode on Monday, and then I kind of like got like grounded again, and then I was like in panic mode again on Thursday, and then over the weekend I kind of chilled out, and then like on Monday I was like, oh wow, there's some good opportunities, and so it's going to be this emotional roller coaster, and you're going to see. So the one of the biggest principles I want you to realize is that macrocosms, like things that happen on big levels, so the stock market or the global economy, are only singular events magnified. And so what I mean is this. I had this emotional kind of up and down roller coaster the last week, like most people did. What did the markets do, right? They crashed. They kind of got back a little bit. They came down. They kind of got back a little bit and they came down. So the economy, oil prices, stock market prices, all these different things are going to mirror the sentiment of the individuals, right? It's a collective is just a bunch of individuals. And so I think it's just really interesting to me how that works. And I think in these times, it's just a matter of really living in faith over fear. And yes, that of course means faith in source or cosmos or higher power or God or whatever you define as that thing greater than you, right? But I think it's also faith in you yourself. And I think it's faith in, for me at least, it's faith in my ability to say, you know what, things can get rough, but I'm confident that no matter what, I'll be able to make it through this and I'll be able to prosper. And I'm not just going to survive this thing, I'm going to freaking thrive. This is going to be something 20 years from now where I'm going to be telling my kids about, man, when that happened, that was my big break. When everybody else lost everything, that's when everything got started for us. And so I think that switch in perspective, it just allows a breath of fresh air. Like last night, I couldn't hardly sleep. I was talking to my wife and sharing with her just some of my theories and some thoughts and, how I think this could logically lead to World War III. And I mean, and they'll never get that far. It never will. Logically, I have like the 17-step like formula for it to get there, but it won't. It shouldn't, at least. But I think in those moments, I found a lot of peace in knowing that no matter what happens, life will go on. This is not the end of the world. And then there's just an opportunity. And there's an opportunity for outward expansion and outward gain. But I think the real opportunity is to battle the internal demons that we have, right? The things, the emotional triggers that we have, the traumas that we haven't healed from, and looking at those things. I think that's really the opportunity, because in these emotionally high, intense crisis type situations, the stuff, I call it stirring the pot, right? If there's just a pot, let's say you get some river water and you put it in a pot and it's all dirty and stuff. Well, if you let it sit for a few hours, all that dirt's going to settle to the bottom, and it'll look really pretty on the top. And then down low is like the dirt. Like the further you go down, the more the dirt there is. And I think our spirits, our souls are the same way. And so this is something like this stirs the pot. Like it's just like stirring the pot, stirring the pot, stirring the pot. And I think that, this is a time to heal some of those traumas that haven't been healed, because that's what you need. That's what you're going to have to do in order to survive this, and not just survive it, but like thrive it. Because I think that's really what we're all going for here. And, and the other thing too, if you look at history, I'm kind of a history nerd. And so if you look at history, wealth changes hands in the midst of catastrophe and political changes, right? So I look at, I've studied a lot of the presidential families. It's like my kind of thing to do. It's like a hobby, I guess. The Kennedys, okay? The Kennedys could not have ever done what they did politically, whether you agree with them or not, love them or hate them, whatever. They could never have done what they did politically unless Joe Kennedy, who is JFK's dad, unless Joe Kennedy would have been rich. So the way Joe Kennedy got rich was he was on the fringe of prohibition. And so he was in this kind of quasi illegal, but not illegal, kind of like what we're seeing with the cannabis industry. So that's how he was able to amass his wealth. The Roosevelt, same type of situation, right? The Bush family, same type. So all these big presidential families can only be presidential families because they have money. They only had money because they were in the midst of some sort of turmoil, some sort of big kind of economic global changes, and they capitalized on it. And those weren't even as drastic as what we have today. And so, I think that brings me to my next point, which is when others are contracting, that is the time to expand. So while everyone else is freezing and hunkering down, this is where I'm sprinting. And I've told my wife that I'm going all in. I'm holding nothing back. I've mentally prepared, I've emotionally prepared, I've spiritually prepared, I've financially prepared for this. And I know nothing other. I don't know how to do anything else except sprint. And so one example of this is going to be digital advertising, right? And so one of my clients is a digital advertiser, and so I'm going to go one-on-one with him about this. But so digital advertising. So most of us, some of our businesses, we can grow through running ads on Facebook, Instagram, all this stuff. So this is an example of why we should sprint right now. So what most people are going to do is, let's say their budget's $1,000 a month for digital ads. And they're going to say, oh shit, no one's going to spend money on my product, whatever it is. I'm going to cut my ads back. I'm not going to spend any money in ads, right? So millions of businesses are going to do this, millions, okay? So that's going to happen. So that's one factor, right? So ad spend is going to be cut, okay? So that's going to leave more. Ads are like, digital advertising is like inventory. It's an inventory thing. So they sell impressions, which lead to engagement, which lead to leads, right? So they're selling impressions. So they're selling views of your ad. So that's going to open up a lot of inventory because people are getting scared and they're going to hold their money. So that's going to open inventory. So the more inventory that's open, what happens now? Now Facebook incentivizes you to buy more by lowering your ad cost. So used to you would spend $1 and get $1 benefit, right? $1 of impressions. Now you're going to be able to spend here in the near future. We'll see when this happens. But my prediction is that you're going to be able to spend $1 and get $4 worth of impact in digital ads, because there's going to be more ads. So they're going to incentivize you to buy more ads because they have all this inventory that they have to move this inventory, right? Think of it like a grocery store. They've got all this produce that they've got to get out the door. So they reduce the price drastically so you'll buy more of it, right? So that's one part. The other part, so people are going to scale back their business and their ad spend. The other part is the coronavirus is causing people to be glued to their phones even more than they already are, right? We're every hour, every 30 minutes, every 10 minutes, we're checking this thing. So what happens is now because of that, there's more inventory to sell. So I used to work at a news station and I sold digital advertising there. And we used to sell like 10,000 impressions for like $100, right? And we would get about 3 million impressions per month that we could sell. So our inventory is about 3 million impressions per month that we could sell. And so I remember there was this hailstorm. So we went from like 3 million impressions to like 8 million impressions. We doubled our inventory. So what do we do? As advertisers, we said, oh, you know what? Instead of 1,000 impressions for $100 or whatever it was, we're going to give you 1,800 impressions for $100 because we want to incentivize it so people would buy more because it's a deal, right? So I think Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all these platforms are going to do the same thing. So not only are advertisers going to back off, which is going to overpopulate, which is going to cause just a lot of extra inventory, but then there's going to be more people tuning in. So there's going to be double the inventory now, because now less people are buying it and more people are tuning in to Facebook more often and all these things. And so I think ads are going to be an interesting thing. I don't really like paid marketing. Facebook's really dropped off the last year. So I'm more of like an organic marketing. I've spent about $30,000 to learn how to do organic marketing in the last year. I'm probably going to start running some ads at some point here in the near future to just start testing some of the stuff out. So I'll keep you updated with that. But I think that that's just an example of when others are contracting, that is the time to expand. Warren Buffett has $128 billion with a B. It's $128 billion right now, sitting on the sidelines doing nothing. And there's a reason he's the richest man. He's the best investor of all time, because he knows how to see what's coming. He did this in 2008. And here's a side note. He has more money sitting aside. He has more money waiting now than he did in 2008. So he knows it's going to be worse. It's going to be the indicators are telling us, we don't know, but the indicators are telling us that Warren Buffett sees that this is going to be a more dramatic recession, and it's going to take longer to recover. And because of that, he's hoarding more cash so he can go buy these companies for pennies on the dollar, because that's exactly what he did in 2008 and 2009. And I think, it's kind of, we're wrapping up here. Really, a couple of things I'm watching over the next 30 days. One is I'm just watching how people are reacting. I think it's important to just take note of how our family and friends are reacting, the things that they're saying, the things that they're doing, the questions that they're asking. I think it's important to be hypersensitive of those things, because those things are windows into what the rest of the country's going through and what the rest of the world is going through, because we're all human. We're all wired the same. We have this survival mentality. We have so many of these things. And so, I'm watching people more than anything right now. I'm watching what are people doing. Like a perfect example, on Saturday, today's Tuesday. So on Saturday, we were out playing family kickball, which is probably not a good thing to do in the middle of a coronavirus, is to have like a family gathering, but we did. And we're playing kickball, and someone brings up this virus and blah, blah, blah. And I don't really share much with my family, because I just don't. And I just kind of quietly said, it's just starting. And one of my family members said, oh no, I don't think it'll be that bad. I think we'll recover. I don't think many people die from the virus. The virus is not what I'm worried about at all. It's the last thing I'm worried about. I'm worried about the utter chaos that's going to happen from the economic impact of the virus. That's what I'm watching. Right. And so it showed me, so that was like a picture to show me that the average person isn't even aware of what the true issue is, because the issue is not the virus. Talk to anyone, they'll tell you that, right? Yes, it's going to take an impact. Yes, people are going to lose their lives. When you compare this virus, when you compare worst case scenario of this virus to how many people die in car crashes, it's not even that. It's unfathomable how minute this is. But so that was a picture that showed me that people aren't even thinking about the economic impact of this. And so that's an opportunity. That's an opportunity for people like you and I to be ready when others are distracted, that we have our eye on the ball. And so, that's the biggest thing I'm going to be watching is people over the next 30 days. Another big thing is I'm going to be watching the Federal Reserve and what they're going to do with interest rates. The guy I office with has a background in banking, and I'm in the process of getting I'm happy to tell you guys, I'm in the process of getting a loan right now. And I was kind of freaking out, because I was like, oh my gosh, what if the banks freeze up? Like, I'm not going to be able to get a loan, and blah, 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 blah. And so he and I were talking yesterday, and he was like, just wait, because the Federal Reserve is lowering interest rates, because they're going to try to keep the economy going as best as they can. So they're going to infuse cash like they did in 2008, and they're going to reduce interest rates. And so we were looking at getting, a loan, and we were thinking kind of where I'm at. I was going to get a 10-year note for 7.5%. We don't know. We might know something by the end of the week, but I could be able to get a 10-year note at 5%, 5.5%, 6% interest, right? On 10 years, on a 10-year note, those are some big numbers. That makes me want to quadruple how much I'm going to get, because it's there, and because that's what the government wants us to do, right? So I've been saying this for years. These tax breaks and government incentive programs are for their benefit. They're not for us. They know how to motivate us so that we can help the economy stabilize, and that's what they're wanting us to do. And so utilizing these tools is actually what our country needs the most. And what our country doesn't need is business owners afraid and shutting the door. So, if most of my clients have more online based business, service based businesses, brick and mortar businesses are going to take a big hit right now. Some of them housing, one of the clients here listening is kind of in housing and some real estate. I think that's actually going to be a good place. We'll see. I don't know what people are going to do. I don't know if people are going to stop buying houses and start renting more, or if they're going to want to buy because of interest rates. It's kind of hard to tell, but what we should see in the next 4 months, what that's going to look like. So I'm watching the federal interest rates. I'm watching the stimulus package from the IRS and what that's going to look like, how that's going to work, what the leniencies are going to be. Because a lot of the stuff we're not going to know for a year. It could be a year from now until some of this stuff is finalized. It could be, like a year at best. Like if this thing kind of blows over in the next month, it could be a year from now until we really get until we really get like nitty gritty details on this stuff. And so there's a lot of uncertainty right now. So that's what I'm watching. I'm watching people, and I'm watching the federal interest rates. I'm watching what the IRS is going to do. Basically, any government entity, I'm watching what they're going to do. I'm going to, as I have thoughts or as I have things come up, I'll shoot videos and send them over to you. Like I said, you guys are my inner circle. I want to make sure, above and beyond just taking care of your taxes or your finance or whatever we're working on, I want to make sure that we grow together. If you're listening to this, it's because I truly value not just your relationship as a client, but just who you are as a person. And you're someone that I want to grow with. And in these times, there's nothing more powerful than for enlightened, gifted, talented, good-hearted people to come together. And I think that's really where the magic happens. That's where catastrophes can turn into triumphs. And so I'm going to keep you updated. And as I know information, you're going to know information. But it really just does come down to just faith that no matter what, you have everything you need inside of you to make the most of these events. Hope you all have a good night.